What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Pokemon TCG Pocket Meta Report. This is the first Meta Report for December. I would say the meta has pretty much been figured out for the most part at this point, with a couple small changes in the tier list, maybe a couple small variations in deck list, but for the most part, I would say the meta has been solved up until now. The set 1 Genetic Apex, so we're just waiting for that next mini set to come out. We're going to be taking a look at PokemonMeta.com, so shout out to the people over at PokemonMeta.com for putting this data together. This tier list is based on community tournament data, and we're just going to get right into it. I'm going to have timestamps for every deck in the description below if you want to jump to a certain deck at any point in the video. So starting off with tier 1, we have Pikachu EX, Mewtwo EX, and Charizard EX. So for a while there, it looked like Mewtwo was the top deck, but now Pikachu has retaken the top spot. It seems like they kind of go back and forth. It was Pikachu, then Mewtwo, and now Pikachu is back on top. But there is no doubt that both Pikachu EX and Mewtwo EX are both the strongest decks in the game right now, with Charizard looking like a close third. So let's take a look at Pikachu EX here. And I will say the cool thing about Pikachu EX is there's still no definitive one version to play Pikachu EX, right? There's multiple different versions here. You can see, well, every version is going to be running 2 copies of Pikachu EX, 2 copies of Zapdos EX. That's pretty much the main bread and butter of the deck, but other people are going to be throwing in some Pincurchins. Some decks might be running Blitzel Zebstrika. Some decks might be running Raichu Surge. Some decks might be running Voltorb Electrode. So I really like Pikachu EX, even though it is considered a meta deck. Some people might find it very boring. I think it is really cool that there's different ways to build this deck. So I actually want to look at some tournament topping decks here, some different versions here. This is a top 32 placement, 182 player tournament. 2 Pikachu EX, 2 Zapdos EX, yep. 1 Pincurchin, 2 Pikachu, 2 Raichu, 1 Surge, and the rest of the trainer cards look pretty standard. Again, we're probably going to see more red cards in these deck lists, since red card is more of a tournament format sort of card. On ladder, you can probably take out red card for maybe just like another potion would probably be fine, but I think red card sees play in more tournament formats with open deck lists and whatnot. But anyways, this is a Lieutenant Surge Raichu version. I really like this version, actually, because Raichu is just a good heavy hitter in the deck, right? Being able to attack for 140. Like, yes, Pikachu EX is strong, attacking for 90 damage for 2 energy, but sometimes you just want to have that big burst damage, so that 140 damage with Raichu can be very nice here. One thing I will say, there's no Giovanni in this deck. You may want to run at least 1 Giovanni with your Raichu. That way you could push it to 150 damage, and you could just one-shot Mewtwo EX with the Giovanni Raichu combo. But that's one way to play the deck. Let's take a look at another one here, another top 32. We got, again, 2 Pikachu, 2 Zapdos EX, 1 Pincurchin, and this deck opts for the Blitzel Zebstrika package, which I really like this card. You know, I didn't like it at first, but the more I played Pikachu EX recently, I have been loving Zebstrika a lot more. One reason is because it's good if you're going first. If you're going first, you can evolve first. So you can evolve into Zebstrika on your second turn, and you could start attacking for 1 energy, and you're attacking for 30 damage, and you can attack any of your opponent's Pokemon. So it could be in the active spot or the bench spot. A lot of decks right now like to have a tank in the active slot and then try to build up a Pokemon in their bench. So it's really good to use Zebstrika to target that Pokemon in the bench that they're trying to protect. You can just use Zebstrika to snipe that. So that's really cool. I like Zebstrika. Another version here, it looks like the same as the last one, essentially, except it has a basic Zapdos instead of Zapdos EX. I've been actually messing around with this Zapdos because, unfortunately, I only own 1 copy of Zapdos EX. So in my Pikachu EX decks, I've been running 2 Pikachu EX, 1 Zapdos EX, and 1 basic Zapdos. This card's not terrible. It's essentially just another tank, right? It has 100 HP. It retreats for 1. It does have a pretty high attack cost for 2 lightning energy and 1 colorless energy, 3 total. It does 100 damage, but it also attacks for 30 damage to one of your bench Pokemon. I'm going to be honest, I I've played with this card a lot, but I don't think I've ever actually put 3 energy on it to attack with. It's mainly there just to act as a tank. And if it gets KO'd, it's only worth 1 point, which is nice because it's a non-EX Pokemon. And I want to see if we can see a couple different ones here. And yep, here's another one. Pikachu EX, Zapdos EX, 2 Voltorb, 2 Electrode. Yeah, so there's some good variety with these Pikachu decks. One thing that's good about the Voltorb Electrode combo is that Electrode attacks for 2 energy, 70 damage. But probably more importantly is that he has a free retreat cost, which can be extremely valuable. You can have a Voltorb into Electrode into your active slot, build up your Pikachu EX on the bench, retreat this Electrode for free, and then start attacking for 90 damage with your Pikachu EX. So those are some of the Pikachu EX deck lists here. Let me know what you think. Let me know which version is your favorite. I'm going to have a video coming out fairly soon here with a Pikachu EX deck. Now, next up in Tier 1, we got Mewtwo EX. This is the main deck here. I would say that everybody is running 2 Mewtwo EX, 2 of the Ralts Curlia Gardevoir, 2 Research, 2 Pokeballs, 2 X Speed, 2 Sabrina, 2 Potion, 1 non-Mewtwo EX, 1 Red Card, 1 Giovanni. Again, since this is these are tournament decks, you can probably swap out Red Card for like another Giovanni. I think this deck is just really good, right? Like once you get that Gardevoir Mewtwo combo online, like you're just swinging for 150 every turn, and there's really no way for your opponent to come back from that. People have been running this non-Mewtwo EX as one of in their decks because it is a good tank. It is a good backup card to do some damage with. It can attack for 4 energy, 120 damage, and it discards 2 psychic energy. So similar as the Mewtwo EX version, it just has 120 HP. It has a 2 retreat cost and attacks for 120 instead of 150. But the fact that it has 120 HP as a basic Pokemon is very valuable because this is a really good card to stall with while you energy up your Mewtwo EX on the bench, and then while you evolve your Ralts into Curly, into Gardevoir. So not much has really changed with this deck. It's really just small, slight adjustments like this person is running a Kangaskhan in this version. But yeah, I would say this is pretty much the standard Mewtwo EX deck at this point. And lastly, in Tier 1, we got my boy Charizard EX. This is what people have been running. It's sort of like a Charizard EX, Arcanine EX hybrid. 2 Professor's Research, 2 the Charmeleon, Charmander, Charizard, 2 Moltres, 2 XP, 2 Pokeballs, 1 Sabrina, 1 Potion, 1 Growlithe, 2 Arcanine EX, and then a red card and a Giovanni. So this is nice that you can kind of just sort of pivot into both of your different lines, right? Obviously, you want to start off with the Moltres EX. You want to Inferno Dance. That way you can ramp up your Charizard in the back line as well as your Arcanine EX. And sometimes the 200 damage with the Charizard EX is just overkill. Sometimes Arcanine EX is just good enough to get the job done, right? Because 120 damage, let's say you're going against Pikachu EX deck, you don't need to do 200 damage. You can just do 120 damage, take out Pikachu EX in one blow. Or you can combine it with Giovanni, do 130 damage, take out the Zapdos EX. So Arcanine is better than Charizard in that sense because he's a Stage 1 evolution compared to a Stage 2 evolution, and he only takes 3 energy to attack rather than Charizard's 4 energy. So Arcanine is a little bit faster than Charizard, so depending on your matchup, you can kind of pivot into either the Charizard EX line or the Arcanine EX line. And yeah, this deck is very, very strong. Moving on to Tier 2, all we got in Tier 2 right now is just Starmie EX. Starmie EX is just good, right? Like there's nothing too crazy about it. There are a couple different ways to play this deck. We see the top main deck here has 2 Professor's Research, 2 Pokeballs, 2 Staryu, 2 Starmie EX, of course, 2 Sabrinas, 2 Misties, 2 X Speed, 2 Potion, Giovanni, 2 Articuno EX. I would say this is up into like the Articuno EX is kind of like the main version. Some people are opting to play Greninja because Greninja is just a really strong card, right? Just being able to do 20 damage to any of your opponent's Pokemon per turn. very valuable ability. This version is opting for a 1 of Meowth, which I like that. I like having a 1 of Meowth just for some extra card draw, some extra consistency. But Starmie EX is it's just really strong, right? 130 HP, and then for 2 water energy, you're dealing 90 damage, and it has a free retreat, which is really nice. And then, of course, Articuno EX is just a really strong card as well, having 140 HP, dealing 40 damage for 2 energy, and then dealing 80 damage for 3 energy, while also damaging your opponent's bench by 10 each turn. So let me look at a couple different versions here, see if we have any huge noticeable difference here. This one, let's see. The first one had the Meowth. This one has another Giovanni instead of Meowth. And this one is running the Greninja package. It is running 2 copies of Froakie, Frogadier, Greninja, and just 1 Articuno EX. So yeah, I think there are a couple different ways you can build it. This one's opting for 1 basic Articuno, which this Articuno is actually not bad. For 3 energy, it does Ice Beam for 60 damage. And then flip a coin. If heads, your opponent's active Pokemon is now paralyzed. I would actually say out of the 3 legendary birds, Articuno, Moltres, and Zapdos, you know how they all have a EX version and a non-EX version? I would say the basic Articuno is actually probably the best out of the non-EX version, because the Zapdos one, it does 100 damage, but it deals 30 to one of your bench Pokemon. And then the Moltres one is a coin flip. If you get tails, you just do nothing. So this one, it at least guarantees 60 damage, but furthermore, you flip a coin, and if you get heads, you're paralyzing your opponent's Pokemon, which paralyze is actually very strong in this game. It's honestly often the determining factor between winning and losing a game. So I actually like this basic Articuno in here as well. There's a couple different versions that you could mess around with this, but it seems the most popular version would be something more along the lines of this one here, with just the 2-star U, 2-Starmie EX, and 2 Articuno EX. All right, now we're moving on to Tier 3. We got 2 decks in Tier 3. We're going to start off with Articuno EX, and this is the main deck here. We got 2 Professor's Research, 2 Misty, 2 Pokeball, 2 Articunos, 2 Articuno EX, 2 Sabrina, 2x Speed, 1 red card. This version is running the Greninja line, and 1 basic Articuno and 2 potions. So this is actually pretty cool to see here. I think this is just a deadly combination, right? The Articuno EX and the Greninja, because essentially none of your opponent's Pokemon are safe in the active spot or the bench, because Articuno can deal 10 damage to your opponent's bench Pokemon, and then Greninja can also deal 20 damage to your opponent's bench Pokemon. So you're just chipping away at their Pokemon, and then the non-EX Articuno can serve here as sort of as a backup card. Maybe you get some bad draws, or it can just serve as a tank for you, right? And then, of course, we got Misty here. So it does look like people are running this deck here with the Articuno EX and the Greninja line. A lot of these decks look pretty similar. It's just the trainer cards that are maybe the ratios are slightly different. Some people are running red cards. Some people are running potions. Some people may be running 1 Sabrina instead of 2 Sabrina. So yeah, all these decks look pretty similar for the most part. So if you want to play Articuno EX, this is probably going to be your best bet here, is something along the lines of this here. And next up in Tier 3, we got Wigglytuff EX. This is one that has been making moves, I think, due to the new promo Jigglypuff, right? If you missed out on this one, what it is it's a basic Pokemon for 50 HP, 1 colorless energy. It does Sing. It essentially just puts your opponent's active Pokemon to sleep. So that's really good compared to the previous Jigglypuff we had, which was, I think it, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was 2 colorless energy, and it would just attack for 30 damage, right? So that Jigglypuff was pretty bad. This one is just way better. The one downside is, yes, 50 health is very low, but putting your opponent's Pokemon asleep and just having them potentially like skip a turn with that Pokemon is very powerful. And then for the rest of the deck here, we got 2 Professor's Research, 2 Pokeballs, 2 Wigglytuff EX, 2 Sabrina, 2x speed, 2 Koga, because we also are running dark Pokemon in this deck. We got 2 Weezing, 2 Coughing, 2 Arbok, and 2 Ekans. Now, the reason this deck works is because you can stack Sleep and Poison. So you're putting your opponent's Pokemon to sleep with the basic Jigglypuff or the Wigglytuff EX, which also puts your opponent's Pokemon to sleep. And then you're poisoning your opponent's Pokemon with the Weezing, and then you're trapping them with the Arbok so they can't retreat. So this is a pretty nasty deck. I haven't played with it too much myself, but I do want to try this deck out. This deck actually looks really fun, but also if you're on the other end of this, it does look very annoying to play against because you're getting put to sleep, you're getting poisoned, you're getting trapped with the Arbok, so you can't retreat to get rid of the poison. So I could see how this deck just really works together. I think this deck is really cool. I've been seeing people play this a lot more in tournaments as well as on the ladder. People have been saying they completed the 5-win streak event with this deck. So if you're looking to play a Wigglytuff EX deck, I think this is probably the best Wigglytuff EX deck at the moment. All right, and last but not least, we got tier 4 with Koga, Machamp, and Exeggutor. Let's take a look at Koga here. So this looks like essentially the same as the Wigglytuff EX deck, but without the Wigglytuff, right? We got 2 Arbok, 2 Ekans, and then 2 Weezing, 2 Coughing, 2 Professor's Research, 2 Pokeball, 2 Koga, 2 Sabrina, 1 X Speed, 2 Potion, and 1 Giovanni. So this deck still gets the job done, right? You're essentially just tanking damage with the Weezing while poisoning your opponent's Pokemon, and then you're trapping them with Arbok so they can't retreat and they can't shake off the poison, right? And then Koga is just an insanely valuable card, being able to essentially retreat your Weezing for free, because Weezing does have a very high retreat cost of 3, but Koga negates that because you can just essentially retreat for free with your Koga. And I'm going to look at some other versions here. This is running a 1 of Jigglypuff and Wigglytuff EX more of as a splash in the deck rather than going full on Wigglytuff, which is nice. This one is running a 1 of Grimer and Muck, which I think that makes sense since Muck does also work with Koga, but Muck and Grimer are not very good in my opinion because Grimer has a very high retreat cost of 3. Muck also retreats for 3 and has to attack for 3. So it's just a very expensive card. I think a 1 of is fine. I don't think I would run 2 personally if I was playing a Koga deck. And yeah, most of these seem pretty similar for the most part. I did share a deck recently where I was playing a Greninja Weezing hybrid combo, and that deck is good as well. It's a dual energy deck, right? So I'm playing water and dark in that deck. So some turns you just don't get the energy you need. A single energy deck like this is going to be a lot more consistent. So if you want to play Koga, you could probably just opt for something like this. Next up, we got Machamp EX, and Machamp EX is still one of my favorite cards in this game, because it is just the perfect line, right? Especially if you're going second. You're going second, you play Machop, you energy Machop, you deal 20 damage. Then you evolve into Machoke your next turn. You add another energy, you're hitting for 50. Then your next turn, you evolve the Machamp EX, you're swinging for 120. So this just has like one of, if not the best curves in the game. Now, of course, you do need to draw well, right? You need to draw all 3 of those Pokemon for that perfect line. But honestly, in a 20-card deck, like, you're drawing it more often than you think you would, you know? And this does also run 2 Cubone, 2 Marowak as sort of a backup strategy here. I think you could also run other Pokemon such as the Primeape and Mankey. You could also run Sandslash and Sandshrew, or you could also run Diglett and Dugtrio. I actually really like Diglett and Dugtrio for this deck because that makes going first really nice, because Dugtrio attacks for 1 energy, and it could help you stall while you build up your Machamp EX in the back line. So Personally, I think I would rather run Diglett Doug Trio over the Cubone Marowak EX, right? Because that way you're kind of covered both ways if you're going first or second. If you're going second, you play your Machop line. If you're going first, you play the Doug Trio line. So, but either way, I think Machamp EX is kind of an underrated card. I think maybe the thing that is drawing back people from playing him is two things. I think one, it's that he's weak to psychic types, and there's a lot of Mewtwo EX going around, so of course this is going to have a bad matchup into Mewtwo decks. And I think the second thing that's holding this card back is that it just doesn't really do anything fancy, right? Like it's just 3 energy, attacks for 120 damage, which is very good, but it's kind of basic, right? It's kind of boring, like, to be honest. I mean, not to me personally. Like, I think this deck is fun, but I can see how people think this deck could be boring because it's just raw damage, right? So some people are gonna like that, some people might not. Some people like to play, those decks like Koga where you have like multiple things going on. You're poisoning, you're retreating, right? This is just like big guy swing damage every turn, right? So some people might not like this, some people do. I personally am a big fan of Machamp EX. I think this is one of the first EX decks I made in this game, and I still love it. So shout out Machamp EX. And lastly on the tier list, we got Exeggutor EX. Now Exeggutor EX is a bit of an interesting one because I think you can play this Pokemon with just about anything. Yes, it does need 1 grass energy, so you are required to have grass energy in your deck, but I think you could play a second energy if you wanted to because it only takes 1 grass energy to attack. So I think Exeggutor EX is one of the most flexible cards in this deck. I think you can slot this in with just about any Pokemon. It's really nice for going first as well, right? Because you just evolve Execute into Exeggutor EX, start attacking for one energy, do 40 damage, flip a coin, and then if you get heads, you're dealing 80 damage, which is really nice. And it's just a really good tank because it has 160 HP, and you get to also run Erica. Erica's a really good trainer card here, healing 50 damage from one of your grass type Pokemon. You can just tank a lot of damage with this Exeggutor EX. The main downside is his high retreat cost of 3. This version here is running a Wigglytuff EX and Jigglypuff combo. I mean, there's not too much to say here. It's just good cards, right? I will say this one is actually running the non-EX version of Exeggutor, which is not bad either. It's essentially the same as the EX version. It just has 30 less HP, and it deals 30 damage instead of 40. And then on the coin flip, it does 30 more instead of 40 more. So you have 30 less HP with the non-EX version, and then you're dealing potentially 30 to 60 damage instead of 40 to 80 damage. And let me look at some other decks here, see if we get any other differences. This has a 1 of Farfetch, which is just sort of a good aggressive Pokemon that attacks for 40 for 1 basic energy. And let's see, this one's also running 2 Jigglypuff promos, 2 Wigglytuff EX, and 1 basic Wigglytuff. I actually really like this basic Wigglytuff because sometimes with the Jigglypuff into Wigglytuff EX, the curve can be kind of awkward because Jigglypuff attacks for 1 energy and Wigglytuff EX attacks for 3 energy, but the basic Wigglytuff attacks for 2 energy. So I actually really like this basic Wigglytuff, maybe like as a 1-of in a deck, because it just curves nicely, attacking for 2 energy, 60 damage, 100 HP. Not too bad, right? So let's look at some other versions here. Ooh, this one is a little bit spicy. This one is running Oddish, Gloom, and Vileplume, just putting your Pokemon to sleep. So again, messing around with that sleep combo. So it's essentially kind of the same as the Wigglytuff EX. Vileplume is actually super similar to Wigglytuff EX. Wigglytuff EX has 140 HP for 3 energy, attacks for 80, and puts your Pokemon to sleep. Vileplume does the same thing essentially, but it's a stage 2 evolution. And also I would say on the upside, it is a grass type Pokemon, so you can heal it with the Erica, which is very nice. But it does seem like people are starting to run Exeggutor EX and Wigglytuff EX together. These are just two generically good Pokemon, right? So if you put these Pokemon together, like, you're just going to have a good deck. This one is running Bellsprout, Weeping Bell into Victory Bell, which is just a nice little combination as well. Victory Bell, if you don't know, has an ability that if this Pokemon is in the active spot, you can switch out one of your bench Pokemon. One of your opponent's benched basic Pokemon. That is important to know. It has to be a basic Pokemon to the active spot. So if they try to retreat a basic Pokemon, you can pull it back with Victory Bell and try and take it out with the Exeggutor EX. So some slight differences here and there, but it does look like the most popular version of this deck is something more along these lines here with the Exeggutor EX and the Wigglytuff EX. So that is it for this weekly tier list, the first tier list of December. Let me know what you guys think about this tier list. Do you agree with these rankings? Do you disagree? Do you think there's any decks out here that maybe the tournament data isn't representing very well? Maybe there's something that should be on this tier list, but it isn't. Let me know what you guys think. We'll take a look at the meta again next week, and hopefully things change up once that mini set comes out. I'm very much looking forward to that. So thank you guys so much for watching. Appreciate you. Once again, shout out to the folks at PokemonMeta.com, and I will see you all in the next one. Later.